Okay, and our next speaker is Alexa Schincariol. Was that close? Cariole. Hopefully that was closer. Neural mechanisms of emotion authenticity recognition, an fMRI study with dynamic facial stimuli. Thank you.
Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you all for joining. Today I'll present our fMRI study investigating the neural mechanisms of emotion authenticity recognition using dynamic facial stimuli. I have nothing to disclose. Well, as you all may know, emotion recognition is a fundamental social activity which enables us to predict others' emotional state and therefore engage in fruitful social interaction and relationship building. However, facial expression can be intentionally manipulated or faked, making accurate recognition and therefore social interactions more challenging. So, for example, while watching a genuine smile can foster intimacy and trust, a posed smile can prompt avoidance and disengagement. So we ask ourselves, does the brain process authenticity recognition simply as a part of emotion perception, or does it recruit a dedicated additional step? So let me put this in other words. You all can see that this is a fake smile. I'm terrified by this whole situation, but does your brain need additional computational layers to detect it? And with our study, we try to answer this question. So evidence from the literature indicates that genuine and posed facial expression engage overlapping but partially distinct networks. For instance, McLellan and colleagues showed that viewing genuine versus simulated static emotion preferentially activates regions including the medial superior frontal gyrus, the lingual and angular gyri, and the inferior temporal gyrus. Moreover, Paracampo and colleagues used TMS to reveal the role of the right inferior frontal gyrus and of the somatosensory cortices in detecting genuine versus posed dynamic smile. More recently, Lee and colleagues found that genuine smile more strongly engage the medial orbitofrontal and prefrontal cortices, the precuneus, and the precingulate gyrus. Overall, these areas are, of course, involved in emotion perception, but also in sensory motor resonance, mentalizing, and also reward processing. This line of research is not free from limitation or drawbacks. Indeed, datasets usually employ a limited set of emotions and usually relies on static images rather than dynamic ones. And these images usually are perceived as inauthentic, thus limiting ecological validity. So with our study, we tried to address these limitations, and we employed fMRI to examine neural mechanisms underlying authenticity recognition by asking participants to view dynamic, posed, and genuine facial expressions of happiness, disgust, and fear, plus neutral facial expressions. And we predicted that the authenticity recognition would engage neural pathways beyond those involved in normal emotion perception. So, guided by an a priori power analysis, we recruited 31 healthy adults with a mean age of 25 years old and mean education of 16 years old. Each participant completed 3 7-minute EPI runs under a Tesla Philips Engineer scanner, and we also acquired high-resolution weighted anatomical images. Each trial began with a fixation cross, which lasts randomly between 3 and 6 seconds. then participants were asked to view an emotional video of genuine rather than simulated emotion or neutral facial expression, which lasts about 2 seconds, and then it was followed by 2 forced choice questions, the first one regarding emotion category and the second one regarding authenticity judgment. Regarding the analysis, we built a general linear model comprising all of our conditions, so all the genuine emotion, all the simulated one, and the neutral facial expression, and we also add a morphology of each participant to account for inter-individual variability. Then we employed the second-level analysis and to test the main contrast of interest, namely the 3 pooled genuine emotional expressions versus the 3 pooled pose expressions, taking into account both contrast directions. And on the left of the image, we can see the 8 clusters in which we found activation for the genuine greater than simulated contrast direction, while the other way around, so simulated greater than genuine, didn't yield any significant results. So in other words, we found an increase in the Bose signals that was specifically linked to the perception of genuine emotions. Moreover, including individual gray matter maps as covariate did not alter the fMRI results. On the right part of the image, we can see the bold percentage signal change for each condition. So in orange, we have genuine emotion, in green, the simulated emotion, and in white, the neutral emotions. And each dot represents the bold percentage signal change of each participant, the average percentage, across all the runs and all conditions. Behaviorally, participants performed well in a sense they could accurately detect authenticity in the 81% of trials. And via repeated measure ANOVA, we found that participants were more accurate in detecting posed fear and disgust versus genuine fear and disgust, while they were also more accurate in detecting genuine happiness rather than posed happiness. Likewise, we used a linear mix effect model and found that participants were faster in detecting posed fear and disgust, again, but they were also faster in detecting genuine happiness rather than posed happiness. So our results support our predictions regarding the presence of a distinct set of brain regions specifically engaged in authenticity recognition. So in other words, the distinct activation for genuine versus simulated expression support a hierarchical processing model in which authenticity judgment involve additional computational layers beyond those engaged in normal emotional perceptions. So in this framework, somatomotor simulation acts as an intermediary step between perception of movement and mentalizing, with simulation fidelity informing the likelihood of an expression being genuine. And in this framework, each ROI we found may have its own role. So, for example, the right inferior frontal gyrus points to sensory motor simulation, while the coactivation of the lateral occipital cortex and the superior temporal gyrus suggests that detailed facial cues feed into those simulation processes. In addition, the engagement of the left cerebellum may underscore its role in temporally predicting and fine-tuning these social signals. Beyond these perceptual motor hubs, posterior midline regions appear to perform high-order inference, integrating simulation processes with contextual beliefs. All of this, together with superior frontal activity, supports a dual-root network-based model in which bottom-up visual analysis and embodied simulation are engaged in tandem with top-down appraisal to judge expression authenticity. Of course, our study is not free from drawbacks. We use a limited number of emotions, and the recognition rate of the stimuli was near 70%. So future studies should explore the functional connectivity among these regions during authenticity recognition and whether individual differences, such as in mimicry or empathy, can modulate these functions. Additionally, causal interventions such as with TMS or TDCS may help delineate the role of the inferior frontal gyrus or the left cerebellum in this process. Moreover, research should use also real-life social interaction and multimodal stimuli like auditory ones to bridge the gap between laboratory finding and ecological validity. Finally, it would be interesting to replicate this paradigm with clinical population with emotional recognition deficit, and this is where our lab is headed. So I want to thank you for your attention and also thank my lab greatly. Thank you.
There's a minute for some questions. I have a quick one. When you were creating your genuine expressions versus the simulated expressions, you may have covered this, but how did you generate those? How were they elicited?
Well, the actors in some cases were asked to post these expressions, and in other cases, in the genuine version, emotions were elicited via smells for disgust, funny videos for happiness, and fearful videos for fear.
Okay. And in that case, is it possible that there are low or mid-level differences between these videos? For example, I can imagine the genuine reactions being faster than the more posed expressions.
Yes, and this is exactly the case why we didn't use sadness, because it unfolds in a longer time, and so we choose those emotions that have similar and faster unfold in the expression.
Nice. And then I'll quickly ask this question. Do you think theory of mind network can be implied in the recognition of genuine emotion? I think that's tied to the previous talk as well.
Yeah, definitely it is a variable that we should investigate through maybe questionnaire and see if it can impact on emotional authenticity recognition.
Wonderful. Okay, join me one more time in thanking the lecturer.